What's going on, guys? Good morning. Welcome back to United View. Hope everyone is doing very well. It is Wednesday, the 23rd of October. And you know what? Actually, the more I hear it, the more I listen to it, I think it is Want You. That intro, it sounds very sort of Want You, doesn't it? I think that is what it is. It's literally, as soon as I pressed play there, I thought, That sounds like Want You, actually. So how's everybody doing? Hope we're all doing good. Welcome to the Morning View, a solo edition this morning as Fleck is jet setting. Yes, he is on his way to Istanbul. He's on his way to Turkey, not for what you think, not for the hair, not for the teeth, not for anything like that. He's out there to watch Fenerbahce versus Manchester United, to bring you some of that A1 content, and hopefully we're going to be bringing it to you fairly soon, within the next few hours, actually. So this morning you've got a solo show, as you can see right there, Thursday, 6 p.m. I'll be live with a match for you, joined by KG, that comedian, Jose Mourinho versus Erik ten Hag, Amrabat, Fred facing off against their former clubs as well. So it's a very exciting week, isn't it? Indeed. We've got plenty to talk about this morning. We're going to be chatting a little bit about Erik ten Hag's big test moving forward, the European fixture, what that really means, how we're really feeling about it, what's more important at the moment, the European football just getting one foot in front of the other domestically in the Premier League, of course, with West Ham at the weekend too. Chat a little bit. Flex and KG spoke about it quite a bit last night, about these reports, rumours about Manchester United, a delegation led by Omar Barada having talks with Xavi Hernandez about possibly becoming the new Manchester United manager, head coach, whatever. I'll be chatting about that and kind of my feelings about that, and we'll open it up, see what you guys think as well. And also some other bits and pieces, including Sekou Kone. Yes, training with the first team. Maybe, just maybe, we could see him actually travel with Manchester United to Turkey for the Fenerbahce game. According to a report yesterday, we might see quite a few under 21 players involved in the squad. Of course, particularly from a midfield perspective, because we got quite a few people missing, don't we, when it comes to midfield options. So we'll be chatting about that as well. Anything else that happens in the hour whilst we're live too. First super chat of the morning straight away comes from Red Baron. Says, I don't know who does the English Dortmund account on Twitter, but they look like absolute weapons when they are celebrating halftime versus Madrid. I saw, for those who didn't see, it was 5-2 in the end, wasn't it? It was 5-2 in the end last night with the Champions League on. I don't know about you. I'm going through the phase that I think most United fans go through when they're not in the Champions League, which is my interest wanes quite a bit, you know what I mean? Because it's like, I wish we were involved in this, or it's just like I have enjoyed watching Aston Villa in the Champions League, because I think the story's really good. I watched them play last night, defeat Bologna very comfortably. Was it 2-0 in the end? I, like everyone, once I saw Real Madrid with 2-0 down at halftime, I thought, I'll give it a look. And then they just completely blitzed Dortmund in the second half. Obviously, a lot of people talking about Vinicius Jr., a Ballon d'Or, which is, what is it, next week or this weekend, whenever it may be, and sort of saying he's a shoo-in for that. But I mean, obviously, once you get to the latter stages of the Champions League as well, then you can really start, you know, as a neutral, which we are when we're watching the Champions League, then you start watching it a bit more. But sometimes I'm a bit like, But Show says, it's the opposite for me. I enjoy it more without us in it. Less jeopardy. Well, you're not a real fan, Show. You're not a real fan. You don't want you're saying you don't want Manchester United in the competition. How dare you? You don't support the club. You're not a real supporter. Through thick and thin. How dare you? Not by my standards that I've just made up of how to support Manchester United. Don't you dare. Don't you dare, Show. But as far as the game tomorrow against Fenerbahce, I am actually really looking forward to it, to be honest with you. I mentioned this yesterday, that the story involved, with Jose, some ex United players there, and Fred and Amrabat. It feels like like an old school, like how many players have played in the Premier League at some point with their starting 11, right? Too. You've got obviously Fred and Amrabat, of course, the ex-United players, and Jose, the ex-United manager, Premier League manager. But then you've also got Dzeko, you've also got, I think, Tadic plays for them, you've got San Maximan. Like, you've got quite a few ex-Premier League players or players that we would know quite well, watching on a fairly recent basis, playing against them tomorrow. And then, of course, it comes the atmosphere as well. And again, I'm excited for it. I mean, as far as what to expect, I mean, who knows? Who knows what to expect from Manchester United in Europe? You know, regardless of what competition it is, our sort of poor European form has spread across a couple of competitions now, hasn't it? From the Champions League last season, where I think it kind of goes a little bit overlooked about how bad we were in the Champions League last season. Because I remember having this conversation a few weeks ago about our poor form in Europe, and someone was like, "Oh yeah, but wasn't it like we got a couple of wins and drew a couple of games last year in the Champions League?" And it was like, no, we won once. We won one game, which was home against FC Copenhagen. All the other games we either drew or lost. Like, it was, I mean, the worst campaign I think Manchester United might have ever had in the Champions League. It was shocking. And you had hoped that, all right, we're dropping down into a lesser competition this time around without the Champions League teams dropping in. That form will subside, but so far not so good. But I do kind of push back a little bit on with this new format with the Europa League and with the Champions League. It is a little bit like, what do they say? You know, sometimes in these sort of cup competitions, you can't win. You can't win it in these early stages, but you can certainly lose it, right? So the be-all and end-all of it is you've just got to go through, isn't it? Really, you know, you've just got to get through. I mean, I speaking of Aston Villa with the Champions League last night, I saw obviously, you know, people celebrating. I think if you look at the top three of the Champions League table, this giant table that's there at the moment, it's Aston Villa, Monaco and Sporting. And with all due respect, I mean, you never know, but with all due respect, none of them are going to win it. I mean, even the top five, look at the top five of this new Champions League table: Aston Villa, Monaco, Sporting, Arsenal, Dortmund. If you were going to pick teams to win the Champions League before, you wouldn't really go for that, would you? You'd be like, oh, no, you know. So we've kind of, I think, got to change our mindset a little bit, isn't it? Because it's just about going through to the latter stages, the knockout stages, and going from there. As we always say, you know, it's not necessarily the best team or the team that finishes the top that wins these things. So as far as Manchester United and tomorrow, and this isn't going to be like me saying, oh, it's all right if we lose or anything like that. Depends on the manner of which. But I mentioned this on Monday when it comes to on the red carpet, that I just feel at the moment that the domestic form, that has to be close to perfect at the moment for Erik ten Hag and for Manchester United. For instance, if we go to Fenerbahce tomorrow and we win, and we're like, see, brilliant result, 2 wins out of 2, you know, have that, you get the hold that's, and all that kind of rubbish. And then on Sunday, we go to West Ham, horribly out of form. They're a complete mess. They got their best player missing, and we lose, and we drop back down in the Premier League again to the bottom half. That's going to be much, much louder than, oh, you got a bit of a negative result in Turkey against Fenerbahce, but you know, you're still probably going to end up going through because it's near impossible to go out of this competition. You have to lose all your games to go through, to go out of this competition. So tomorrow was those games against Porto and Fenerbahce. They were the two that were earmarked, weren't they? They were the two that were earmarked at the start of going, we might draw them, or we might not win those, but we'll probably win all the rest. Now, we didn't anticipate drawing at home to FC Twente, which probably put a bit more pressure on that. But I think at the moment, not that we have the luxury to pick and choose when we win. Oh, we won't win tomorrow, but we'll win at the weekend or whatever. But in the league, they need, certainly I think Ten Hag needs just wins in the league, climb the table of the Premier League, I do think the Europa League, certainly in this phase, will largely take care of itself, because we'll still go through, I think, irrespective of really what happens tomorrow. But the Premier League, that can be a very slippery slope very, very quickly. What else are people saying? That fella says, again, I said a draw away at Porto and Fenerbahce would be okay as long as we win the rest of the fixtures. So at this point, 20 was the real disappointment. Yeah, that was kind of again, that's when it is important, I think, to sort of take half a step back and go, well, those fixtures, what did we necessarily expect? The 21, as you mentioned, that was a massive disappointment. And that's why I think the outrage was really big coming out of that one, because it was like, really? You know, this side hasn't been in Europe for a while. Erik ten Hag's hometown team, what have you, and not picking up the win against them. That's why I'm looking at the one tomorrow. I know this Manchester United side. I know these players. I know the manager. I know our performances in Europe. Frankly, my expectations not massively high. I'm looking forward to the game because I think from an atmosphere point of view and from a story point of view, it's going to be really good. But yeah, if I'm looking at the games this week, and I'm going, which game? If you said, if you had to pick one, which game does Erik ten Hag have to win? I would go, it's that one. The one you can see on the sidebar right there. It's the one on Sunday. I think if they don't win that one, then there will be, once again, the pressure will be absolutely ramped up. So and look, if we can win both, then it's a bit of a run together, isn't it? Again, wouldn't be necessarily fooled by it all, but we are very much into the territory of taking it one game at a time at the moment. One game at a time, indeed. And as far as the Champions League, if I had to make an early prediction who I think would win it, you never know. Real Madrid, isn't it? And it's their competition. Near enough. It's their competition. I do think it's quite hilarious, really, that, you know, Kylian Mbappe goes to Real Madrid and just he's put in that team, and I don't know if it's because, you know, playing with better players. He played with some fantastic players at PSG, but it feels like I don't know, like it just, you know, you got people in there at the moment like Vinicius Jr. that are probably going to win the Ballon d'Or, etc. And he just feels like he's not as important, you know. That's what it kind of feels like, just not as, you know, just it's a big name, but to go, wow, Vinny probably win Ballon d'Or, feels a bit more important, a bit more crucial to the team. And it's just interesting how that all works, isn't it? Indeed. What else are people saying here in the chat at the moment? Show says it's a bit like when Hazard went there. Yeah, it's weird. Like, you would, on paper, it is so like a perfect fit. You know, like you said, Hazard goes to Real Madrid, that'd be perfect. You know, what a player. Mbappe go to Real Madrid, it'd be perfect. And it's just kind of like, yeah, you know, yeah. It's a bit like that, isn't it? Just feels a bit. Vinny's a bit better. Red Baron says Jose is doing badly there in the league at the moment. Well, this is the weird thing, and we are going to have a preview coming up with the Jose stuff or the Fenerbahce stuff. I think they lost one game, which was the derby game, and I think they're not happy about that. Well, they're third in the league. I think they've drawn a couple of games too, but it doesn't really matter, does it? Because when we play Porto away, it was largely, so I remember Flex said it, and if you looked at Porto compared to last season, you go, well, it's definitely not the Porto of last season. They're not as good. They lost quite a few players. They're not the same. It still didn't matter because we still nearly lost that game. We got a draw in the end, so it's kind of irrelevant. Well, still with Man United, if you go, well, that team's completely out of form, or they're not as good as they used to be. I mean, I did hear a lot of cope after that Porto game of people sort of saying they won the Champions League in 2004 and we're scoffing at a draw away. I was going, what has that got to do with anything? What's got to do with a competition they won 20 years ago about how that we should be happy if that's the case? All right. Blackburn won the league in the 90s. Well, when we go away to Ewood Park, you know, it doesn't matter where they are at the moment, but they've won the Premier League. So yeah, we better be careful. Good point. If you go to Ewood Park, considering they've won the title, or when we play Leicester in a couple of weeks' time, if we lose to Leicester, well, they did win the Premier League in 2016, so let's what are we doing? What are we doing with that kind of stuff? Which I thought was a bit nonsense. Speaking of possible nonsense, let's talk about this Xavi stuff. This was this was weird how it just kind of came out of nowhere last night, wasn't it? It was quite strange with these talks from the Daily Mail coming from Chris Wheeler et al. Suggesting that Manchester United had these contacts with Xavi. So, as you can see right there, as part of there was at United Confidential. And they said Manchester United made contact with Xavi twice in the last few months through intermediaries. A four-man delegation led by Omar Barada flew out to Barcelona last Thursday, although Manchester United sources say that a number of high-level meetings have taken place there recently because Sir Jim Ratcliffe has been there to support Ineos Britannia, the sailing team out there in Barcelona. This is an interesting one. I think a lot of it is quite convenient, shall we say. You look at, well, as the sort of United sources push back on, well, we've been in Barcelona anyway the last few weeks. We know that, if Sir Jim Ratcliffe was there, there's a chance that they probably would have had meetings there. You've got Omar Barada, of course, has links back to Barcelona too. So it kind of feels like maybe there might have been a situation of, kind of just putting two and two together, really. Let's put two and two together. So I did see the Muppeteers also sort of say, well, Xavi was considered in the summer, wasn't the right move at the time. He wanted some time off. He had struggled, or I don't know if it's the right word, struggled with the pressure. I remember Pep Guardiola saying something similar about the Barcelona job, just basically being like, I'm burnt out. He went on a sabbatical, didn't he, for a year after he left Barcelona before he went to Bayern Munich, because the pressure and media intensity is super high there. Naturally, the response to that is, well, if you're concerned and worried about media scrutiny and pressure, step in the Man United hot seat because it's just as bad, if not worse. And also, you're in a failing team, so they'll be on you from the moment that you sit down. So you might need that break, but I just don't know if I buy it. I just don't know if I see much in it. I could see the idea that maybe, with the start to the season that United had, Ineos felt a little bit sort of on the wrong foot, and they thought, well, if this does continue to go bad, we need to assess options. We need to see who's out there quickly, who we could get quickly. We don't want to be caught cold again, and we want to have a replacement lined up if indeed we do decide to go in that direction. Maybe that's all it was. Maybe when they say intermediaries, it's literally just that. Hey, not even would he be interested, just is he looking for work at the moment? Would he be willing to, consider job offers? What's going on? Or it could just be Omar Barada knows Xavi. Again, they were at Barcelona. I think, what was Omar Barada? Was he like a marketing manager or something like that? Around the time that Xavi was still playing there. So there is a link. He's got links within Barca. So that could be a part of it. And again, Man United were out there anyway. So it was just a case of, well, whilst we're out here. So I don't think it's anything immediately. I don't think it's anything imminently. I think that as far as Ten Hag's future, is it under immediate threat? Well, I don't think if there's a negative result tomorrow, that would be the case. At the weekend, if it was a negative result, to be honest, I think after that last international break, I think they would wait till the next one anyway. Or it feels like they're going to wait, to sort of the Christmas period as it is, unless things go really, really, really catastrophically bad. So, I just don't really see that much weight in the story. If you're going to go down the sort of real hypothetical route of, well, how would it work for Xavi at Man United? Well, again, his time at Barcelona is an interesting one, as Flex KG pointed out last night. Came in at a difficult time at Barca. They were like mid-table or something, got second. Next season, won the league, won a cup there. But also, during his time there, they did struggle in Europe, didn't they? We beat him in the Europa League. Not that that logic means anything, by the way. I've seen that because that is the most ridiculous logic in the world, which is Ten Hag beat Xavi. So therefore, it's basically being a manager is winner stays on. Apparently, if I've beaten you, you cannot become the manager of this club, which is kind of hilarious, really. Because if that's the case, don't hire Pep because Ten Hag's beaten him. Don't bother, you know. Yeah, it's a very, very, very weird logic, that one, which I don't really get, to be honest with you. He does speak actually really good English because I think we've asked questions to him here at United View. If you go back to watch the videos around that Barcelona game, Flex is in the press conference asking Xavi questions because around that time was still the time of, is it going to be Ineos or is it going to be Qatar or what have you? And obviously Xavi worked out his first manager job was with a Qatari team, so he spoke about knowing the Qataris very well and all that kind of stuff. So he speaks very, very well. But I just don't really see it. I don't really see a lot of truth in it as of right now. And I do think, in comparison to where it was a couple of weeks ago, I do think the talk about sort of the managerial position as a sort of immediate concern or immediate, like this could happen in the next week or so. I just don't really get that feeling at the moment. Once we get closer to the next international break, maybe again, but yeah, I just don't know if I see it as of right now. But we'll see. What are people saying in the chat about it? All Elite says, the poll yesterday was simple for me. If it was a choice between Zidane, Xavi or Emery, I'm taking Emery all day long. Do you know what's really funny about the Unai Emery stuff? And this kind of backs up my wider point about managers and about players, is we're so quick to write people off coming in places based on things that have happened in the past or past failures, if you will. So, when certain managers' names get brought up or certain players get brought up, immediately it's, well, they were at Club X and they got the sack, or they didn't score goals, or it didn't work out there, so it would never work for them at this club. And that's just really nonsense, isn't it? And Unai Emery is the best example of that. That is a coach right now that everyone's waxing lyrical about. I watched Villa last night again. Like I said, I've watched, I think, all of their Champions League games thus far this season, and they've been brilliant. They've been brilliant. I really like the football they play as well. I think the style of football they play is so refreshing as well, because in a day and age where you can sometimes get bored to tears watching football matches now, sometimes with it being overly tactical, with it being overly like tiki-taka, sideways passing, dominating possession, all that kind of stuff, and you go, oh, this game's just got no excitement in it. They not only do they suffocate the opponent to death, they suffocate you to death watching it. Whereas Villa, it's like fast, it's quick, it's high energy. There's not a lot of passes in between attacking moves, and they're just good to watch. They play a high line, so they're always looking to break fast, break quickly. And this is a guy that, well, he's been at Villa nearly 2 years now. That, 3 or 4 years ago, when he was at Arsenal, he was laughed out the country. He's like, I watched the interview he did before the match, the pre-match interview, and he did his good evening thing, and I thought the difference between our perception of him just saying those two words is crazy, because 3 or 4 years ago, again, the guy got laughed literally out of the country by what he would say at the beginning of interviews. And now when he says it, there's like an aura around it, isn't there? Going, bloody hell, he's, good coach. Look how fierce he is. Look how determined he is. Look how attention to detail orientated he is. And it just goes to show that sometimes if you're at a certain club, certain time, certain place, certain players, it don't work out. Doesn't make you a bad coach. Doesn't make you a bad player. Just about the circumstances. That's life. Sometimes it doesn't work out. And that's really the same for Erik ten Hag, by the way, too, because I've seen the pushback sometimes of when you've sort of get, I don't know if it's really working out of with Ten Hag at Man United. And then the pushback, so you're saying he's a terrible coach? Not at all. Not at all. Can't take away the things that Erik ten Hag's won at Manchester United. I have no doubts that wherever he would go, he probably would be a success. Sometimes it just doesn't work out at certain clubs. Lots of top managers have been sacked. I mean, everyone talks about Don Carlo. The guy's been sacked. He was sacked at Chelsea, which was harsh because he finished second and got sacked. That's when Roman was at the peak of his ruthless era. But I'm even talking about when he was at Bayern. Didn't really work out for him at Bayern Munich. If you go and look at his tenure at Bayern, I think he won the Bundesliga because that's what they did. But I think he got sacked midway through. Napoli got sacked at Napoli before he went to Everton. But he's Don Carlo. He's won multiple Champions Leagues now at Real Madrid. Didn't work out at certain clubs. So that happens. That's football. That's life, really. So with Unai, it's just really interesting now because he's this coach that's being heavily praised for being, for the job that he is doing, and he's done a brilliant job. The football he plays is fantastic. And he's got that club there. He's got that club there and the fans right there in the palm of his hands. Like he's got them. Everything he says goes. They totally believe and buy into everything he says. Every substitution he does, every interview he does, they believe. And that is a very, very powerful place to be. And also as well, that sort of club now is kind of built around him. He's got his director of football that he'd worked with previously at, is it Sevilla or Villarreal? I forget which one it is. But they're getting the players that he wants to get. Their recruitment is another part. You see it with the depth of their squad, by the way. Like Aston Villa, in terms of the depth of player they got like a Champions League squad. They started Giroud last night, take him off. They bring on Ollie Watkins. They got bunch of different players on the bench. He's good. Or they bring on, he's good. So they got these options to come off the bench. I'm looking at United going, the team news comes out and we go, who are we going to bring on? who are we going to bring on? What's going to happen? What are we going to do? What are we going to do with some of these players? So yeah, I mean that I think Unai Emery is the shining example of sometimes that you can go to certain clubs, sometimes it doesn't work out, but it's not a true reflection on your managerial ability. It's not a true reflection on how good of a coach you are, or if how you can handle certain situations, because you learn from them. One. And two, sometimes it's just not the right club, not the right environment. And we've seen that with players at Manchester United, right? Coming to Manchester United, not good, move on. They're better. It's and that's really football. Super chat here from Red Baron says the pressure at United and Arsenal is on a different level than at Villa. Well, that's why I say it's about certain circumstances and right environment. Also, as well, is you look at that Arsenal squad that Unai Emery had, it was shit. That's why it was a peak Arsenal banter era. And even on top of that, what I would say is, despite that Arsenal side not being great, he still managed to get them to a Europa League final, which, by the way, considering Arsenal's European pedigree, which they have none, by the way, no European pedigree, isn't bad going either. But I think that it's funny now, isn't it, that I saw there was a big argument on AFTV. This was a while ago, actually. It might have been 6 weeks ago, or something like that, between Robbie and someone else outside the Emirates. And basically it was Unai Emery is the second best manager in the Premier League behind Pep, and they were like, no, or he's better than Arteta, and they were like, no, and you go, well, actually, Like there's a lot of weight in that argument, isn't it? If you want to look at a transformative job that he has done, and now they're in the Champions League competing. I mean, again, the true test I think will be in once you get into the knockout stages. How far can they go? Can they qualify so they don't have to go through the playoff phase? Can they go straight through? And then how far can they go when it comes to that? I think is a really, really interesting one. A really interesting one. But again, he's a top coach, no doubt about it. Top coach. What are people saying here in the chat? Dwayne says Emery would be hammered if he played the high line football at Man United. Let's not lie to ourselves. One side we say Villa have a better squad, but no cups and a fourth place. He would be sacked here. No, he wouldn't. Eric Ten Hag would not be sacked for finishing fourth at Manchester United. That's what we've been asking for. That's been the baseline minimum requirement, hasn't it? You know, it's been top four plus cups. When people were looking for, you know, Manchester United that first season when it was like third and a trophy, that's why there was a lot of pressure last season. It was because eighth and a trophy isn't really good enough. That's why I'm talking about with the West Ham game at the weekend, saying for me that's the most important game of the week, because if you start sliding down the league again, people will come for you. And you know, I think what we don't need to was the expectation at Aston Villa to win trophies. Certainly it's not to finish in the top four. For Aston Villa, qualifying for the Champions League is better than a trophy at the moment. It is. They would have never thought that. Never, ever, ever. Eric Ten Hag would have never been sacked for finishing fourth in the Premier League and a no trophy. You take the piss. Absolutely no way. If Eric Ten Hag doesn't win a trophy this season and he finishes in the top four, there won't be discussions about, is he going to keep his job or not? Absolutely no way. That won't be the discussion, because they'll be like, wow, all right, we're in the Champions League. That's building, you know? And it's not to say, and that's when we get back, and so you're saying trophies don't matter. Of course they matter. But a club like Manchester United is looking to be consistently in the Champions League and competing for trophies at the same time. It shouldn't be one or the other. And I don't think we are in the position to basically be putting down Unai Emery and being like, well, it wouldn't work at Manchester United, or he would be sacked at Manchester United. Well, what are we doing? Of course not. If Unai Emery had done the job that he's done at Villa at Manchester United, he'd be in the Premier. We'd be talking. We'd be like, oh my god, because it's not only the thing. The other part of it with Unai, what he's done at Villa, is for the last what? I mean, he's been there 2 seasons. So, and for 2 seasons, what you have seen with Villa is consistently their football, in addition to their results, in addition to, you know, big teams that they've beaten, by the way, their football has got better. You know, their football has got better and more consistent. You know, I just spoke about it earlier on, about the style of football they play. You know that how they're going to play, it's drilled into them, it's obvious, and that's also the difference between Man United and Villa. We'll be playing against Fenerbahce tomorrow. We're talking about, is it going to be the 4-4-2? Is it going to be 4-2-3-1? Is that what it's going to be? We're not really too sure. So I don't subscribe to that at all, about that. Red Baron says, ask Arsenal fans for their opinion. You might get a different reaction. What, on Unai? But yeah, because they're with Arteta at the moment, aren't they? Of course. They're with Arteta at the moment. I thought it was very interesting to see, actually, after the weekend, once again now, that door is starting to creak a little bit, isn't it? That door's starting to creak just a smidge, where it's like, if he doesn't win anything at the end of the year, it'll be interesting. Very curious. Show says 7th in his first season when taking over at Christmas, 4th in his first full season, now looking like a top 4 team again. Emery versus Ten Hag's not even in the conversation. And that's also when I talk about, again, you're talking about, I got criticised the other day for saying that I hate the word rebuild, because I think it's a buzzword that sometimes people use to cope for really, really poor when things aren't working out. They go, wow, you can't handle a rebuild. I don't think like being bottom half is part of a rebuild, man. That's just being shit. To Show's point there, you look at Emery, take him in there just over outside relegation zone. First full that season they finished 7th. Next season they get better and finish 4th. This season thus far, it's early, it must be said, but it looks like they're continuing that trajectory of they're in the Champions League, they're competing, they're beating a big team like Bayern Munich. As far as the Premier League goes, I would think if you had to predict what that top 4 is going to look like come the end of the season, in no particular order, you're probably thinking it's going to be what? City, Liverpool, Arsenal, and then it's Villa and Chelsea, probably Villa and Chelsea for the 4th and 5th, and 5th might get you Champions League anyway. And that's progression. That's going in the right path. That's going in the right direction. It's not that. That's not that. But there's a cup dotted around it. You go, yeah, that's not. That doesn't feel like we're going in that forward direction. Sometimes, look, progress can be 2 steps forward, 1 step back, but eventually you're still going forward. But it doesn't feel as erratic, does it? You know, so I really don't think we're in a position to be like, wow, that's Aston Villa. Wow, that's just not the case. Adam says, who cares about 4th, 2nd, and 17th are the same? Oh, you're so right, Adam. No, of course it's not. Of course it's not. I think that if Erik ten Hag finished 17th, he might not keep his job. If he finished 2nd, I think he probably would. So I would say to Ten Hag, maybe, don't listen to that one. That was. I don't think they're exactly the same on that one. I do want to talk about very briefly. So I spoke about this earlier on. It does look like there could be quite a few under 21 players that are involved tomorrow, or at least in the squad. One of them is Sekou Kone. This is quite exciting, isn't it? So it was reported yesterday that he trained with the first team. He's developing well at Manchester United. They trust him for the future. They won the race to sign him versus various clubs over the summer. And he trained with the team yesterday. There was also reports, I don't think he trained with the team yesterday, but there were reports that Obi Martin could be on his way to training with the first team fairly soon. Look, the thing we have to do, right, and the one thing I worried about when I saw this stuff yesterday, I thought we need to be very careful, because let's say we're struggling with midfield options, or midfield's not playing well. Soon it's going to be just put Kone in there, just put him in there, and you go, well, what if he's not ready, and what if it's not the right time to put him in there? Put him in there, just put him in. He's going to become the answer. And I thought, oof, that might be a concern. He might be with the squad today. We'll wait and see. He might be. I think I saw a thing saying United were going to stream the open part of the training session today. I don't know if that's actually a thing. It might be on their YouTube channel or something like that. So look, I really liked the signing when I saw it in the summer. Same with the Obi Martin stuff. Same with the guy that we got from, was it Palace? I think it was from Palace in the summer. That those kind of players, the sort of, hopefully, cream of the crop when it comes to academy players or under 23 players, whatever you want to call them. And then in a couple of years' time, they're like ready to break into the first team. And suddenly you go, wow, where did all these players come from? Where did these exciting players come from? That's good recruitment. Something I've just been praising Aston Villa for, saying that's good recruitment. That's taking your time with certain players. And because it feels like you see that, don't you, with other clubs, particularly like teams like Brighton or something like that, where, and I guarantee what will happen at some point this season as well. There'll be a player at Brighton that suddenly you go, who is he? Where did he come from? Why is he so good? Why don't we do stuff like that? And they're really good at it. So what we need to hope is people like Kone, like Obi Martin, like, is it Lascelles? Is that his name? You sign them with a plan for a few years' time, and eventually they come in, and suddenly then you've got quality players that, and you haven't had to overspend, and you haven't had to break the bank and put yourself into a very difficult PSR and FFP situation. But as far as, tomorrow, let's just play at Fenerbahce away. Why not? We've taken very good care of you. We've made sure we've got you a family to settle in to life in Manchester. We've been very, very careful. We've been very, very meticulous about how we want to integrate you and how that you can acclimatize the very best you possibly can. Oh, and by the way, you're going to be starting against Fenerbahce away in the Europa League against Jose Mourinho in this atmosphere. Good luck. And then push them. That's just not going to happen, is it? Might go along just a bit like earlier on in the season with Harry and Mass, when it was you might warm up with the squad maybe, or you might just be taken along for match day sort of thing. And this is our process. This is how we operate. This is what it's like. This is the preparation. These are the meetings. This is how we travel. That kind of stuff, just to kind of get a feel of it. But as far as the idea, put him in now, or even, again, if there is a negative result, either tomorrow or the weekend, just put him in. Let's just throw him in right now. And it's we've got to be very, very careful, because those same players that we're saying to just put in now will be the same players that we criticize and say they're not good enough, they're never going to make it, they're not of Manchester United quality, they're a bum, they're this, they're that. Within 5 minutes of them being on the pitch, we will do it. You look at someone like Alejandro Garnacho. This season, he started the season really well. A lot of people talking about his raw potential, and a lot of people talking about how much he can improve, but there is areas that he can improve, but he's direct and enjoyable to watch, this, that, and the other. I remember just a couple of weeks ago, not even this was last season, just a couple of weeks ago, it was no, go to Spain. What clubs were they saying? They were saying some lower tier Spanish clubs that he should go to. Not good enough. He can go there. It was what? go to Almira or something like that. Rubbish, terrible. And he's a kid. This is his second full season at Manchester United. Kind of same about Kobe at the moment, isn't it? Got an expectation now. Nope, not good enough. He's barely championship level, actually, just completely overhyped. And you go, wow. So that's when I look at a Sekou Kone and go, until you're absolutely ready, we've got no business throwing you in just to be to the wolves, quite literally. Because if you have a bad performance, heaven forbid, your career's over at that point. It's wow. So we just, with those players, we need to be as careful as we possibly can, because as we spoke about earlier on with the Xavi stuff and the pressure at Manchester United, same for the players and same for the young players as well. We're desperate to have the next big thing, or this really exciting young players. And we like that we've got all of these players listed on, was it the European Golden Boy or what have you. But, we also still have to sort of protect them too. Super chat here from, who's it from? From Carol, says, the live training sessions on MUTV. Thank you, Carol. Yeah, I saw that it was going to be streamed. And I remember there was a big thing, wasn't there, last season? Was it last season, I think? Was when people were comparing one of those to an Ajax session. They were this is the difference. And for those that really don't know, those open training sessions that last 10 minutes maybe, it's not real training, basically. It's all for the cameras, essentially. The way that it works is the media lines up, and they go, right, we're going to do a drill for 5-10 minutes, which might be I don't know, a rondo, some pressing drill or something, a bit of keep ball. And it's not training. It's really not that. Or they jog around for a bit, do a thing, do a drill, and then they tell the media, right, you got it now, piss off. We're going to do the real training now. And lots of people really hyper-focus on that as that's the real deal. This training, no wonder Maynard in the mud, this is the training. You go, it's not really the training. But I'm sure there'll be a lot of scrutiny on that as well. And Red Baron also says you should speak to Marcel about Code. He was saying a couple of months ago, wasn't he? Put Code in there for Casemiro, and I was Yeah, I don't know. I don't know about that. Eric says it's acting basically. Well, it is a drill, but it's not. It's not really. It's not real training. Basically, it's just one of those like. It is when people say, "Oh, it's for the camera." That it literally is for the camera. It's just a bit of footage. People can do their reports or just see who's actually in training. The biggest thing to get out of those things is just to see actually who's training, who's involved. That's about it. So yeah, it's not Manchester United's proper training. Although there was a lot of stuff yesterday, wasn't there? I don't know if you saw that from The Athletic about Rene Harker and about Ruud van Nistelrooy and Erik ten Hag and how they take their training sessions. So you'll probably see something like that. You'll see like Ruud or Rene Harker do some kind of drill and then it gets kind of analysed to death, basically. What else are people saying here at the moment? Leaf says the patience with players from the youth department who do not cost a fortune is high. Well, I slightly disagree because again, I've seen and I've been part of shows where I've seen comments or what have you, where after a bad game, again, I use Garnacho as the example. It was like, no, he's nothing more than like a mid-table La Liga player, and you go, what? Is that what we're doing now? Are we really doing that? And it's like, that's a bit much, isn't it? that's a bit much. And to be fair, that's why I give him his credit. I mean, I completely disagree with what Abe's saying here, saying Erik ten Hag doesn't play the youth at all. It's not true. Probably as another factor of why he is still in the job. He's brought through Kobe Mainoo, brought through Garnacho. He's bringing through the likes of Collier. Who's seemingly going to be earmarked as like the next one he wants to bring through. So yeah, that's just not true. I mean, trust me, you can find plenty of things to criticize Erik ten Hag about, but you can't criticize him for not trusting youth or not wanting to play youth because it's just not true. If you want to criticize him for things, just pick the more obvious ones as opposed to the stuff that isn't true. United Matthew says, "Oh, watch midfield 3 tomorrow." I think that. I think the most likely one is probably the most obvious one, which is probably you push Eriksen a bit further up, and then it's Ugarte, Casemiro. I think he probably goes for. I know there's been the talk about does he go with the 4-2-3-1 or does he go to the 4-4-2, but I think he'll just go with. Considering how United got a positive result at the weekend, I don't think he'd change all that much. So I think that. It probably would be, and we're into like preview territory here, but I think it'd probably be Onana in goal, Dalot, De Ligt. I suppose there's a question about whether or not, you keep with Johnny Evans. I don't think so. Maybe you might go with De Ligt, Martinez, and then Mazraoui again. Maybe rest Johnny Evans to play at the weekend. Then the midfield, you probably look at Ugarte, Casemiro, Eriksen. Front three. I think he'd probably keep it the same, to be honest. He'd probably go with like Rashford, Garnacho, and Højlund. Because I think he wants to get a run going. I think he wants to get a run going and try and pick up some wins. Because that's not what's been happening at the moment. And H says, "How are you, Owen?" I'm fine. How are you? Hope the chat's doing very well too. So there you go, guys. That's the morning view for you this morning. As for what's coming up, well, it's going to be a busy day actually, isn't it? So we're going to be having a previewing this Fenerbahce game tomorrow. At some point today, also we'll be getting some kind of an update from Jurgen Fleck, who I think he'd be on the plane now, or if he's not getting very close to be getting on the plane right now. I think he said his flight was 6 o'clock. Yeah, his flight was 6 o'clock. So he's probably in the air at this point, if he's not there already. As he's on his way to Istanbul, he's on his way to Turkey. So we'll get an update from Fleck, who's flying solo as well, by the way. So you want to talk about Flecknology, it's going to be a very interesting 48 hours, to say the least, when it comes to what Fleck gives back to us from Turkey. I've got faith. I've got faith in him, and I believe that he can do it. So we'll be hearing from him at some point as well. Press conference, usually, I don't know, but usually the way the press conferences go with these away games is that they do their training and their open training in Manchester at Carrington. They then, after that, get on the plane, go to wherever they're going to be playing, and literally they land, go into the media room, do the press conference, and then bugger off. So I think that'll be the case. If that is the case, then we're probably looking at a press conference of around sort of 6 o'clock-ish. But last time, it was way later because they had all the trouble flying into Portugal. So very up in the air when it comes to that. And tomorrow, of course, it will be match day, but we'll still have an episode of the Morning View. Then we'll have all of the build-up to the game in Turkey. You can join KG, that comedian, and myself on the match view, which those Europa ones are always a lot of fun. So you can join us then, and we'll have all of the fallout from that as well. So yes, I think I'm caught up with super chats. Indeed I am. If you haven't already, click the like button. Be sure to do so. I didn't really push it this morning because I just forgot. And be sure to subscribe as well whilst you're at it. And we'll speak to you again very soon. I'm out of here. Peace.